Okay, so in this video, we're going to take a look at how to create a mesh emitter for emitting static meshes, which will behave like particles.
Exactly.
So Joel, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Alright, so of course we're going to, you've guessed it, create an emitter. So we've got our emitter, and what we want to do is set this guy all the way at the top here, and he's going to be throwing boulders down. So that's going to look kind of interesting. So let's push this guy all the way up to the top, at least interesting to me. If it's not interesting to you, too bad.
Right, because, you know, if it's interesting to Joel, I'm typically not that impressed. No, I'm just kidding.
So if we come into the emitter properties, come over to your emitter, and we'll add an emitter. In this case, not a beam emitter, but a mesh emitter. So we're going to create new, and we get a few new tabs here, mesh and mesh spawning. These are the two important ones. So all we need to do is set up what's static mesh. Well, let's go into our static mesh browser, and let's pick a boulder. So in Abaddon hardware, we have, this boulder right here. So under Deco, Rocks DOA, or whatever it is. So with it selected, come into here, just say use, and now look at that. Ooh, fancy.
Very nice.
Now, what we wanted to do is start falling. Well, to add gravity, we want to use acceleration. So under Z, we want to say a negative 200 fall. And no, maybe faster. I want it to fall faster. Negative 500. Fall faster. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. But
so we have this steady stream of boulders falling out right now.
Yeah, you know what? I don't really like it. What we want to do is maybe switch this down a little bit. So max particles 3. So look at that. Dink, dink, dink.
Surely we can make them look a little better than that.
Oh,
though.
of course we can. If we come down to the size and set start size range, we want to make sure uniform size is off, and it is off. And we can come in here and say, I want it to be a little bit different in size. So we can come in here and say max, it can be 1, min can be 0.2. For all of this, min 0.2.
Okay, so
but
we're going to get differences in size now.
Right, so look at that. We can get elongated ones, all sorts of different shaped ones, if you will. Well, if we wanted to, if we just wanted to scale it down uniformly, we could turn on uniform size, but I kind of like this variance in size.
I'm really sorry. Do you know much about castles? Like, you know, old castles, you know, old English stuff?
Not really.
You know what a cesspit is? It used to be what they'd use for a toilet. It was usually like this long stone sort of tunnel that went straight up into the air, and at the top of it was a toilet.
Thank you for that visual, Zach. Just what I need.
It's just the first thing that came to mind when I saw these guys flashing to life and falling.
Oh, that's just great.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. If we come into the location tab, moving right along, let's make their where they're falling from a little bit different. So
we know where they're falling from, don't we?
Yes, we do. So we can come over to start location range, and we'll set a square area like we did before. So maybe 50, 50. So just a 100 by 100 square area.
Okay.
So if we look up here now, so now it's emitting from.
They're not all coming from the exact same place.
Right. Maybe even a little bit higher. 100, negative 100. So this is going to be a. How large of a square?
Right.
How large? That's actually a question.
Well, I'm sorry. It should be 200 by 200, so.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Hey. Isn't that cool?
That is pretty cool.
Now, why don't we add a little bit of collision? Now, this is the hard part, so bear with me. Come down to the collision tab. Turn on use collision.
Wow.
Look up. Uh-oh.
Oh, wow.
Bouncing.
Now it's all bouncing.
That's kind of scary. So what we can do is come over to here, and again, we have our dampening factor range. We can set in all of the axes, because we don't know if it hits the wall or something.
Right.
We can come in here and say, I want you to maybe be 0.6, and 0.6. Not 0.6 point, but I'll go and change that in just a second. So look at that. Dink.
Here's an interesting question. As I'm watching these guys bounce, is Unreal actually calculating that collision at the surface of the mesh? Or
no, it's just a simple box collision, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So, you know, that looks kind of weird. Why don't we go ahead and add a little bit of variance in the shooting direction? So if we come down into velocity, maybe add just a little bit of variance in X and Y.
Okay.
So come down to start velocity range, and in X and Y, you know what, maybe come in here and do something like 0.2, maybe more than that, 10. 10. and in min, -10. So it shoots in both directions. So now, if we look down here, you know what? Maybe a little bit more. So come in here and maybe 50.
Maybe that's not enough.
Maybe not. Come in here, say that. What I'm hoping for is maybe a little bit of
they're
bouncing
starting to move
off the
toward
walls.
the walls, yeah.
Yeah, so look at that. Now they're shooting towards the walls a little bit. You know what? I'm going to get crazy and say 80. If I could know how to
Speaking of
cut it.
crazy, I could be nuts here, but it looks like they're actually colliding at a single point in the center.
Yes, they seem to be doing that, exactly.
Okay, so it'd be like a single particle collision.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So that's looking pretty interesting. Maybe even add a little rotation. I like rotation. So let's come up into the rotation tab here. Turn on spin particles, imagine that.
Alright.
And in here we can say spins per second in X, Y, and Z. Since we have a mesh here, we can spin in all three. So let's say maybe spins per second, 0.2, -0.2, and again, this is spins per second. So if we set this to 1, it's going to have 1 full revolution per second. So
Cool.
that's kind of a lot. So 0.2 is a little bit more logical.
A little more subtle.
Yeah, a little bit more subtle.
Alright.
So now we have rotating something. Now he's got me
They're
thinking.
boulders, really.
Yeah, they're boulders, yeah. So that's a basic introduction into how to do a mesh emitter. Thank you.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
And I mean, you could do this for all kinds of things. Like, I mean, you could create like a static mesh for, say, let's say maybe a robot.
right.
Let's say like we'll build like a robot that's just kind of standing and not really doing anything. You could then emit these guys down a single path and make it look like they were moving down an assembly line.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, maybe it should be like where you only saw like a little window of these guys moving by, but it'd just be a particle instead of having a mesh that you'd have to animate as a mover or anything like that.
Right.
So, I mean, there's ways to use this to your advantage to get some really, really cool effects.
Yeah, something a little bit maybe cooler than what we have there, the rocks.
I don't know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
Still, admittedly, rocks is not the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, at least you're honest.
Well, I didn't want to say that's what your work looked like, so I figured I'd be nice.
Yeah.
So, really, I guess that's going to wrap it up for this video. I mean, we've pretty much accomplished everything we came here to do. I mean, we've taken a look at sprite emitters for creating a waterfall,
Yeah.
creating a teleporter or jump pad effect. We looked at fire.
Right. Ooh. Oh, yeah.
So we looked at a really cool way to create fire with sprites. We looked at beam emitters with the cool lightning you see going on there. And finally, we took a look at mesh emitters, so how you can actually emit static meshes from a particle emitter.
That's right, and we also have other emitters up here. If we go up here, and let's just add another one, we do have like a spark emitter, a trail emitter, and these are pretty much the same, same workflow.
Okay.
So if you wanted to come in here and start testing those out as well, do so. Test them out.
Absolutely.
Working with particles is a testing thing. It's a play thing.
Exactly.
Go in there, test different attributes out. We can't show every single attribute. We'd bore you to death.
Right.
So we went in and actually showed you some fairly real-world examples.
Cool.
So I guess with that, that's going to wrap up this VTM. So thank you, Zach, for hanging along and kind of, making sure I did the right thing.
Thank you, Joel. You did an excellent job.
Hey, thank you. So with that, that's going to wrap up this VTM. Thanks, everyone.